Check. Hey. Is your CSU here in the multi-purpose hall? Hoping everyone can attend in the STC today. Make sure your team is heard and represented. Again, here at the multi-purpose hall, starting at 10:30, we still have seats. Don't worry, we'll have the pigeonhole platform in case you're shy to ask questions up front, but your warm presence here in MPR would be great. New hires, old hires, all welcome to join us in SuperDuperCon today. Yes, we encourage our new hires to ask questions for SMA later on. We still have seats here at the multi-purpose hall. Please join us and give your warm presence as we start on time later at 10:30.
Year after year, one thing has remained constant. Our goal to ensure meaningful economic development
Check.
and
Hey.
uplift the lives of the people we serve. Amid the changes, we continue what we've set out to do. We believe in an enterprise that reflects our culture, our values, our core. We take inspiration from our past. And usher in a new era of progress. Our balanced pursuit for financial gains and sustainability reflects our rich history and our fruitful journey. And shows our commitment to the country's future. The difference we make defines the work we do. Every time we energize our cities, fulfill the dreams of the many, forge genuine partnerships, connect ideas, design experiences, and solve our toughest challenges. We drive change for a better world. By staying rooted in our values and understanding the community's needs, we are able to create an impact that is felt beyond borders. A change that transcends generations. A legacy that will stand the test of time. And as we conquer new horizons, we look back to where it all started. From a small town in the Visayas to our journey to become global, we will remain at the helm. Our next century defined by how we break conventions, rethink the usual, and push the boundaries of possibility. Because our business is your story of firm foundations, purposeful growth, and the future that we share. Aboitiz, 100 years of advancing business and communities.
Sa bahay namin wala po kaming kuryente. Madilim, walang ilaw.
Again, to our AEV team members across the floor, please join us for today's Super Duper Call. And for those just entering, please do occupy the seats in front so
And
we
then
can fully
Bakilan
maximize
Ginyawan
our
is very
space
lucky
here.
to have
Thank
the
you.
solar panels.
Hello, welcome to the Philippines, a fast-rising economic hub in Asia, a complete investment destination with business-friendly policies, a highly competent workforce, and abundant natural resources. On behalf of Aboitiz Infra Capital, welcome. Industry and infrastructure are integral to the country's economic growth. And here at Aboitiz Infra Capital Economic Estates, we're providing you with the perfect opportunity to invest.
West Cebu Estate has been our company's home since 1993. We partnered with Aboitiz Infra Capital because apart from being a subsidiary of the Aboitiz Group, it has a proven track record and experience in developing and operating industrial-anchored mixed-use estate for over 30 years.
Multinational businesses like our company go for master plan, fully integrated development. Strategically located in the Philippines' first growing regions, just like here in Aboitiz Infra Capital's Dreamer Estate.
The Aboitiz Group already have everything we need to set up and run our business efficiently: power, water, construction, and the project management services. Aboitiz Infra Capital's complete and reliable infrastructure support will lessen your worries, ensuring your business safety and success.
Good morning, A people. Welcome to a brand new season of SuperDuperCon. We hope you're excited and ready to gain something valuable for both life and work from today's discussion. Before we begin, here are some important reminders. For our safety, please note the exits in case of an emergency. Please keep your phones on silent and minimize movement during our town hall. Please also follow SMA on LinkedIn and join our community of A people sharing the Techglomerate message in the professional marketplace. Speaking of community, don't forget to subscribe to Aboitiz Eyes to receive important updates across the Aboitiz Group. Scan this QR code to sign up now. Important update on GT 2025 collaterals. We will now revert to using the Aboitiz logo and core identity. Expect an email today on the brand new guidelines for 2026 onwards. Next, be sure to follow our official social media channels at Aboitiz on Facebook and Aboitiz Group on Instagram. Finally, SMA requests your full attention during the program. So prepare your questions on our topic for the Q&A later and send them via the Pigeonhole link in our calendar invite. And now, let's begin SuperDuperCon! Good morning and Happy New Year, everyone! Welcome to SuperDuperCon Season 7. I'm Gail Quintos, proudly from the AEV Reputation Management Team. Woo! And we're here live from AEV's Manila office, together, of course, with all of our AEV team members. We're such a full house today. I'm so happy. And today, it's the first SDC of the year. We are officially in 2026. We've crossed the turning point in the Great Transformation. So I'm sure many of us are asking, where do we go now? What comes after GT 2025? On New Year's Eve, right in the middle of festivities, SMA dropped his New Year's message. If you read it, and if you recall what he said, you might have an idea of what SDC is about today. So, of course, there's a lot to unpack, and that's what this season premiere is for. So, here we go, everyone. Let's begin SDC Season 7. Again, welcome to SuperDuperCon Season 7, Episode 1. As a reminder, please everyone, applause energy as SMA welcomes us in the new year. And please do send your questions on Pigeonhole. Click the link in our calendar invite. And SMA is always welcome to challenging questions. So please do share that energy with him today. Please do also share your New Year's resolutions as we enter this new year and as we enter a new phase of Aboitiz after GT 2025. Do we have any brave souls that want to share their New Year's resolutions for this year? Professional, personal. For me, my personal is to get more fit. But my professional, of course, is to make most with what we have currently in line with SMA's New Year's message. And speaking of SMA, let us welcome him now, our Chief Engagement Officer, Sabin Aboitiz.
Morning, everybody. Oh, I was trying to make things simpler when I came in. Happy New Year. I was trying to make things simpler when I walked in. Wala lang drama. Meron pa bang drama? Anyway, good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. I think we had to make this SuperDuperCon on a Monday morning to make sure that as many people as possible came in today. But still, it's not so full. So next time we'll make it on a Friday afternoon. Anyway, so how many of you read my New Year's message? Why does it take so long for hands? They wait for the next, huh? Okay, now I'll ask you another question. So how many of you really read my New Year's message? Meaning, you absorbed it, thought about it, considered it? How many? One, two. Oh, it's going up a little bit again, depending how many go up. So I guess my point, right, is let's talk about it today, right? I think there's a lot of things in that message. It talks a lot about where we are today, both in our personal lives and corporate lives and government lives. I mean, government, country life, right? And I think how we understand this message as leaders today is what's going to guide us this year and how we're going to work, right? So let's start with prudence. What does prudence really mean? Simplifying but choosing. What's fit for you? What else?
Being conservative, you take the risk. Kasi our parents would always say, you have to be prudent in the way you dress, di ba? Yung parang medyo conservative.
Conservative. Okay, well, if you look it up in the dictionary, I'll tell you what it doesn't mean. It doesn't mean slowing down. For example, it doesn't mean being afraid. And it definitely doesn't mean doing nothing. Okay? So prudence is not, prudence to us means different things. I think that's what we're getting here, right? And it should, on a personal basis, right? Right? But prudence, I would say, would be making better choices as probably something that we should bring with us for this year, right? It means basically knowing where to lean in, where to move, and where to step back, for example. So they mean different things, right? And that's kind of what the message is about. It means it's like, what's it going to be for you as a leader, on your personal life, etc., etc. So think of it this way. I think that we're not hitting the brakes on what we're doing. We're just tightening that steering wheel to be able to make sure that we become prudent enough to really focus on what matters, right? Again, both personally and in a corporate wise. I always say this and I always stress it. Why do I do that? Because I think that after 5 years of being and talking about the great transformation, in general terms, we have not still today do not think of transformation on a personal basis. We always think of it as a corporate. And we always think of it as tech. It's not tech, right? Transformation is a personal thing, begins with, and that was always the drive, right? But it's something that I guess once it enters as tech, as corporate, it's very hard to go. Transformation is about, it really starts with you and me. So the second word I want to clarify is simple. So simple is not cost cutting. See, simple cost cut, no. It's waste. If you want to talk about the cut, it's about cutting waste. It's about throwing away it's about cutting what we throw, what we would throw away anyway. And simple is not doing less just for the sake of it. It's about, and it's definitely not about making things smaller. No, that's not what simple is, right? Simplification is about removing what gets in the way, good thinking, too many reports, too many approvals, too many slides, too many meetings, too many priorities. I don't know if you remember the first thing I did when I became CEO. Do you remember, whatever you want to call it, Executive Order number 0001? What was that? Do people remember that we're here? One signature on everything, right? I did it on it's like a point, right? It's like make a point, right? Oops, one signature and everything. And then it would come back again. Oh, we can't do one signature. One signature. And if possible, no signature. Okay, and it started with the leaves, right? They started with the leaves of in AEV at least, where, you know what, why are we asking 5 signatures on leave? 1, 2, 3. Everybody has to sign your leave, right? It's just inform your leader. How many times have you said no? Leaders were afraid, the simplicity of it could not enter the mind. Leaders were afraid of losing control of the person below them. I go, how many times have you said no to a person? How many times? Do you remember the last time you said no to somebody who said you're going to leave? The answer was no. So why are we doing this, right? Why do we have 5 signatures? And we all agreed to do it where it's an advice and that's it, right? And so simply, this is, again, very small thing, but they're very, I was doing these things to drive a point of simplification, hoping that we would understand what really simplification means and be able to drive that down the company, right? So simplification shouldn't only show up in your budget. If it only shows up in your budget and nowhere else, again, we missed the point, right? It should show up in clearer decisions, faster execution, and definitely less noise from the teams, right? In Bisaya, they call it bagulbul, right? Less bagulbul. Which brings me to innovation and transformation, right? Early in transformation, we looked at innovation, like I said earlier, means building new systems, new capabilities, new platforms, using tech always, because that was the sexy thing, that was the exciting thing, right? But really now, as we see transformation maturing, innovation should always be moved towards simplicity, making things simpler. You know, I was talking to a young person over the break, and she was telling, I was like, what do you do, right? And she goes, well, her job really is about, she works in Los Angeles, and it was really about renting secondhand dresses, right? And I just found it so fantastic and so simple. And she goes, and I go, how are you doing? She goes, oh my God, you cannot believe it, right? Because it makes so much sense, right? She goes, everybody's closets, she has this thing of, she apparently has this, she works for this company with this app. I mean, you must know it all, but to me it was amazing, where they showed their closets today and their closets before, and how their closets had so little, but they had so much more. They would rent the dress for the prom, return it that next day, whatever it is, suits, however it works. Nothing went to waste. There was money being made. There was taxes being paid, right? So again, you needed the tech to get it done, obviously, right? To be able to go online. But once that tech is there, that simplification of people's lives, right? And how it affected. And she was explaining to me how the appreciation of people to be able to have the Uber of, you know, or whatever of clothing, right? And I guess, you know, I said, well, I hope it's not in the underwear, you know, but hey, it might start happening, right? So anyway, so it means building new platforms, and when transformation matures, innovation should really become more simple. That's the reason we innovate, right? It's to make things easier and simpler for us in the office, at the personal life, et cetera, et cetera. So if innovation is making things more complicated at this stage, you're not innovating, right? Okay, so real innovation is when things become easier to use, easier to understand, and easier to run. So things are just work, right? And we're seeing with tech really how, you know, John, where's John? Is John here? John and ADI has promised me that they're going to bring to us, he's going to shoot me for telling you this. They're going to bring to us the ChatGPT way of doing things by the middle of the year for anything to do with the Boitis, right? Including policies and all of that. So you go in and you ask it like we do it, right? So again, this is, you know, using tech as a background, making things much simpler for everybody. Again, he's going to shoot me for saying that, because I have no authority to say it. But let's put a little pressure on him to make sure he delivers. And really, the best kind of innovation at this point should feel almost boring. Again, that one. Why? They just work. It just happens. It just works, right? That's your real feeling of innovation. So as leaders, right, I think we should really be able to. And there's so many ways of driving this now, right? There's so many tools that we have. So what does this mean for us leaders in 2026? What does it mean? It means saying no more often. It means squeezing every drop of the orange. You've heard me say that. I won't repeat it. It means being creative enough to do more with less. It means removing and not adding. So the minute you add, oops. It means removing, not adding. It means being clear about what really matters, and it's being honest of what really doesn't matter. So let's do things that matter and not the things that don't matter, right? So if your team feels busier but not clear, that's on the leader. That's on the leader. But it's on you to tell your leader. If you don't tell your leader, it's on both of you. How's that, right? And if everything is a priority, well, that means that then nothing really is a priority. Priority means priority, right? So 2026 is not a year for dramatic moves. It's a year, I think, for disciplined leadership. I think let's talk about it a little bit more, what we're expecting. Clear thinking. So again, the thinking must be clear. And if it's not, clarify it, make it clearer, think about it. Clean execution. So when we execute things, make it simpler so that it's cleaner to execute, right? And a transformation that actually makes things for us in the office really much simpler, right? Let's make it simple. So let's move forward and hope to clarify a lot of the questions today about how we're going to work moving forward in 2026 and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, SMA, for setting the tone for 2026. It's all about prudence, simplicity, practical innovation, and I'm sure everyone has a lot of questions about this. Let's start with if there's a brave soul here that wants to share a question that they have in their mind. Maybe from our leaders.
Waiting for the hands to go up,
Yes.
one by one.
Take initiative. Anyone? Well, maybe we'll find initiative in our pigeonhole questions, which I'm sure must be filled. So let's start with our questions from there. First, how do we quantify the cost and benefit of simplification and the
Cold
transition to being a Techglomerate? What are the key wins on the latter?
Sorry, I was asking something. How do we quantify the cost and benefit of simplification? How do we quantify the cost and benefit of simplification and the transition to being a conglomerate? I mean, some things you can't quantify as a cost. I think if you want a number, well, you must be a millennial and a spreadsheet guy. I don't think we can. I think it's either we get it or we don't, right? You can't put a number into it. That makes sense. Of course, you can put a number, but a number that makes sense. What are the key wins on the latter? Well, again, right? I mean, it's how do you work? Is it simpler? Is it not simpler? Are we getting more done with less? Are we pulling our hair less? You look at the office today and how we can move around things. If you go 10 years ago, you wouldn't have an office that you can move this from. If you see them from easier, you would have to get 20 people to lift the tables, move it around, right? The chairs didn't have wheels. These are all innovation things that make things simpler for all of us, right? Wireless everything. How do you put a number to that? I don't know. Okay, you'd say per square meter, this, that. I mean, I think it's a waste of time. I think we get it. No? We get that simplicity makes it, the flexibility makes it much easier for us to maximize the spaces that we have, right?
I remember also before SMA in the previous SDC, you mentioned that it's also different per team and per team member, the way that you simplify. So it's up to us also to take the initiative again to apply it to our own work and our own processes.
Yep. Think, no? Don't ask and then think about it. How do I do it, right? Research. Go to the web where there's the smartest people in the world are all out there in the web. They're teaching us so many things. The world of YouTube is, my God, it's like.
True, SMA. Ask ChatGPT. Thank you, SMA. If anyone has any questions that have already formulated in your mind, please do feel free to ask. Raise your hand. If none, then we can go to the next pigeonhole question. What are ways we can help our leaders decide what to say no to and what to proceed with? What are our leaders looking for?
Okay, well, that's a very good question. I'm glad it's asked, right? And I use this all the time. And the leaders are going to know what I'm going to say probably, right? And I'd say, why do you make me be the one to say no? You're the leader. Don't come to me because you don't want to say no to your team and bring it up to me, then I have to say no. That's unfair, right? So, what are leaders looking for? I mean, leaders are looking for the people below to do the discipline or to do the no's or to do the don't always don't always bring it up to the top to say no. Then you're popular again, and then you're. It's not what it's about, right? It's about being a leader, and a leader is about why are we saying no, convincing, talking, right, and understanding why we're doing things, right? Sounds familiar, no? Guys, where I keep saying, don't make me the asshole, please. Right? Why is it always like this? So I would say that's where leaders and people from all levels should be able to stop it from the beginning, right? And when you do that, just make those sacrifices. You will see that then people start getting engaged. But if they keep going up and up and up, number one, it takes forever, right? Number two is they don't understand why. Why? Because the leaders at all levels are not processing, thinking, and taking the risk of explaining why they're saying no, or maybe why it might be a good idea. So if you process it and discuss it, then you might say, wait, that no should not be a no, it's probably a yes, right? Now I understand more. And that's what being a leader, I think, is about, right? It's not about being popular. It's about doing the right thing for majority of the people. I mean, let's talk a little bit about what's coming this year, right? What is our role? Our role in the company, our role as leaders, is we have a responsibility. I always say, right? We produce 20+% of the power of the country. We provide almost 20% of the cement, of the feed, I mean, I could go on and on. So that's a very, very big responsibility that we have, right? We also have responsibility to our shareholders, pension funds, retirement funds. We have a responsibility to make sure that these guys, that we don't squander their money away, right? Who have entrusted them to us, the company, and we have a responsibility to the employees, right? To protect our livelihood, our jobs, et cetera, et cetera. So the more popular the decision you make usually is the worst it is. But you do it for ourselves. Why? Feel better. I don't want to deal. I don't want to be unpopular. Easier for the team. Very short-term thinking, right? Many of us know the decisions that we're making are short-term. We know it, but we make it. And I'm not only saying corporate. We make it even in our personal lives, right? Why? Because it's easier, right? It's an easier thing. But later on, right? Later on, it's going to bite us. If we don't save money today, okay, it's going to bite us later on, right? If we don't, we have 3 kids, our kids are pressured in Instagram because their friends are going to Vietnam, and we give in and we don't, our policy in our family, let's say, is, 20% of what we earn is going on the side, no matter what, right? That's going to be for time, for future, for all of this. But when we get the pressure as leaders of the family, for example, and we give in, and we give into these things and we start eating into this, those unpopular decisions are going to bite us in the ass later on, right? For sure, So the leader should say no, right? Should say no, right? As a matter of fact, the kids, you should train them to not put the pressure to make the leader, the father, the mother, again, the asshole, right? So that's your ideal. So I'm trying to relate it down, right, to what leadership is about and what are leaders looking for. Now, but leaders are also looking for direction. They want to know why, which a lot of times the why is very hard to put in black and white, right? The why. I mean, but the people should also process, think, what's he saying, why, right? Try to understand also why. Make the effort of understanding, right? And not just, well, convince me, right? If you don't convince me, try. So it's both ways, right? So I think that's that's probably what I think leaders are looking for the most, to get a little bit of help of, to make it simple. Say the no down, say the no where it doesn't have to go up anymore, right?
Right, SMA. So, yes, for leaders, do away with short-term thinking and always understand the why. Maybe we can go to our next question also virtually, if there's any other questions on Pigeonhole. How do you motivate people with differing agendas? Then, on a personal level, how do you motivate your kids with failing grades? Thank you for your answers, SMA. Very personal question.
So how do you motivate people with different agendas? Well, that's what leadership is about. I don't think we always have the same agenda, right? That's not the way life goes. People have different agendas. The variance of those agendas is probably what you're talking about, right? I mean, some are. So, well, so you kind of, sorry to say, but you have to we have this variance of agendas, meaning generally we're moving forward this direction, and the guy that keeps, or the girl or the whatever keeps going the other way, you've got to, if it doesn't come in, it's easier to trim that, because what happens is that this here, this one or whatever, affects this, right? If you have a, let's say a sales team, right? And your sales team, I understand that in general, right? If you have 10 people on a sales team, not all 10 are Michael Jacksons, right? They're not all the same high performance, et cetera, et cetera. Usually you have 2, 3 high performance, 4 or 5 average, 2 that are kind of, just hanging out and what do you call it? Well, these 2 here are what affect this. The average are average, they're there. You can't be a whole high performer. So, but your focus has to be on these 2 here, right? So these 2 here, the problem with these 2 is what we feel bad for them, right? Oy, kawawa naman, may pamilya, blah, 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 right? Yeah, but so do the 8. Okay, and what happens is that if we allow these 2, then the 8 get affected, right? And then it moves up the organization, et cetera, et cetera. Can you just leave the questions on the thing so I can refer lang? So those are different, for example, different agendas. And some are saying, I mean, the agenda is, I mean, I want to be, I'm here to learn, right? Not for the company, but I'm here to learn for 3 years, and then I'm going to bounce and move to the next. That's a different agenda from a person that says, look, I want to be in the company for the rest of my life, and therefore I'm going to make understand long-term decisions rather than short-term decisions. And that's the way life is, right? So you need to deal with that, but you need to face it. How do you deal with the agenda is, if you let it slide, why? Become unpopular. Again, the no's, then the agendas start taking over. But if you face the fact, right? I mean, if you have cancer, you've got to face the fact. You can't say, well, let the cancer go, right? I mean, no, right? You kind of head on the cancer, and you take whatever the doctor tells you to do, et cetera, the sacrifices that you have to make. And that's the same thing as a different agenda. It's like a cancer because it spreads into the thing. So you need to talk about it, and you need to be a leader and hit it head on. Right? I would talk about the different agendas. Now, failing grades. I think there's a lot more information on why kids fail, right? Before, when obviously when a lot of us were growing up, that information wasn't there, and we just thought, well, tamad, bobo, blah, 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 right? Now I understand, with the different understanding the mind much better. So not all people are made for school, right? So I think you need to try to understand the reason why your kids, is it motivation? Is it his brain is not wired that way? I mean, if you make me, become a doctor, I think I would fail too, for example, right? I mean, it just doesn't, my brain is not or an engineer, I think maybe my brain would not be able to handle that. So it all depends, right? That's a very hard question to answer, by the way. Depends on your family, depends on the dynamics, it depends on so many things. But in short, try to understand the reason of the failure of the grades, right? It could be the school, it could be the atmosphere around, it could be so many different things.
Thank you, SMA, for sharing your advice both as a CEO and as a father. Before we head to the next pigeonhole question, encouraging again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand from any leaders or... Oh, yes, Ms. Marnie.
I was typing it. Thanks. Aside from Aboitiz playing a key role in the country's economy through our growing businesses, I'm sure Aboitiz has also positively influenced the good performance of this national government. Can you share, please, with us, like, what are the policies or ways we've been able to influence, and how we plan to further leverage on that this year, like further influence this government?
Honestly, it would be, I would be like kind of tapping myself, so I prefer not to, parang I feel uneasy, right, saying it, because so we've been tried to, but we've been successful in some, we've failed in a lot, right? So if you don't mind, Marty, I don't want to, because it's talking about myself, and I don't want to do that, for example. I'll whisper to you.
Thank you, sir. Any
Thanks.
other questions from any other brave souls? New hires or... if there's none, then we can head to Pigeonhole again. Congrats, SMA. Yes, on the Daily Tribune, they hailed you as the Filipino of the Year. Woo! For transforming AEV into a Techglomerate. What metrics will you aim for this year to prove that transformation is delivering outcomes?
Well, so I think transformation has really not delivered yet so far, so I don't agree with them. But it's there, so like they say, I'll take it. The road to becoming a Techglomerate, I think about it all the time, right? And I look at I don't look at where we have been successful, because I think we have been, and we will be, because the road is a long road. And the tech that we talked about 4 years ago when we talked about this is really happening today and happening much quicker, right? So I think that road is correct. Now, I think the understanding of being a Techglomerate is where I think I have failed, right? Because it's not only about technology, right? It's about using technology to help the company, right? So your basic company is still there, right? Using tech is, in any way we do now. So technology must help the company to your client. It's not about bringing down costs, it's about contacting your client, making it simpler, making it easier, but it's not about technology, it's about the client. The Techglomerate focus has been about technology, right? So I want to now clarify that and say, no, it's not. It's about, we saw technology accelerating, right? The use, the importance, the ease, right? So that's why Techglomerate was like, hey guys, we're going to need to really be much better at technology. We need to understand it better, use it better, research about it better, monitor it better, metric it better, right? Because remember at that time it was all about apps, diba? Oh, apps. How many apps do we have? Well, Well, again, and that's part of the transition, right? So I hope now that we can understand much better that Techglomerate means that we are maximizing the use of technology where it makes sense per business unit, right? I just gave you that example, right? Make it easier for everybody to, ChatGPT is the way to go. That's how people are going. You're seeing that platform thinking, way of asking, et cetera, et cetera. Let's use that and use that to be able to draw all the information that we need inside the company, right? So that's, I don't know if I'm making myself clear, right? So it's about making it easier. It's not about the tech, right?
Yes, sir. It's
So-
a common misconception about Techglomerate.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. Just like transformation is about the company and not about ourselves. No, it's about ourselves. Right? That's actually the most important thing. That's what, no matter where you go, if you have been able to transform, if we've been able to help, if we've been able to make it easier, you take that wherever you go, whether you go to another job, whether you go to, that value in you is something that nobody, and that thinking is that something that nobody can actually take away, right? So,
Yes, sir. Like you said a while ago, if innovation is just making things more complicated, that's not what we're about.
it's a warning sign, right? Saying, wow, this is becoming like such a hassle. Well, that's not what it's about. So you know that something's wrong, right?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Maybe we can have another question. Again, raise your hand if you have any. Oh, yes, Joyce.
Thank you. Hi, SMA. In relation to the previous question about our journey to becoming the Philippines' first Techglomerate, 2025 was a milestone year for great transformation. But beyond practical innovation, just like what you have mentioned in your New Year's message, what's next for the great transformation? Because of course, it's a process. Transformation is a process for you and me. So what's next for the great transformation?
So that's coming. Um, as you know, it's infinity, right? And that continues forever. And 2025 was kind of to have a checkpoint and a date where you target certain things that move, right? And soon, I think we will be coming out with what we feel the next. We're just tightening things, and you will see what the next forever would be, right? In effect, because things have changed so fast that even if you planned it before, it would have been completely useless today, right? Because and so that's the way we're looking at it. Things are changing so quickly, right? And they're completely out of our control. We're not. And look how fast things come in, right? They spread around the world so fast. So it's coming soon.
You
It's
heard
a
it
tough-
here
it's a
first,
tough one.
guys. Transformation's never ending, and it's coming soon, whatever our next phase will be. So stay tuned for that. Any other questions from the audience? If none, then perhaps online, if there's any questions. Congratulations on bagging GIP SMA and AEV/AIC. When will we be seeing changes in the group about it, and what should we look forward to the most?
So there's certain things that still have to be done for this to be finalized, right? All the agreements are in already. We just need there are some condition precedents that we have to get done to do that, which should be done, before the end of the year, before the middle of the year. AEV is going to become, as you know, a portfolio manager, right? And a portfolio manager is a different way of working. So you've noticed, what did we do first? We federated the SBUs, right, to become a portfolio management. So first, the federation of the SBUs had to happen, where you strengthen the SBUs, where they can operate on their own, right? Stronger management, stronger board, stronger everything, right? Which now relieves AEV to now be able to manage the investment in the different areas. So you saw like an investment in Coke. Investment in Coke is something we like the space, we like the consumer space, we like strong brands, right? But we don't manage, for example. So that would be a portfolio manager. Say, okay, let's put X amount of money on this one. This looks good. In the power business, we operate that, so that's called an active portfolio manager. So we're portfolio, but we're actively managing, right? So these are the two different types of investments. That way of thinking is what we're transforming into AEV. So again, this is a perfect time to talk about it, because that is a great transformation. That is transforming AEV from being a center of excellence of what we were, 5 years ago, right, to an active portfolio manager. So that would be I think a success, if we're able to do it successfully, which I don't see any reason why we won't, that would be a great transformation. Okay? But in our minds, sometimes we think of transformation as tech, but no, see, that is a transformation, right? Moving into this type of a business, right? Moving into the consumer business is a great transformation, right? You're transforming from being non-consumer to consumer. Union Bank, right? Union Bank was basically, you go back 5, 6, 7 years ago, more corporate, more all of this, right? Now we're more consumer. We're 60, almost 70% of our loan book is consumer. That is a great transformation. That is transforming a bank from a bond trading bank of 20 years ago to a corporate of 10 years ago to a consumer bank, credit cards, et cetera, digital banking, all of that. That is a transformation. So this is what transforming is about, right? And what comes with that? Different skill sets, right? All of a sudden you need, well, you don't need me, for example. You need a guy that's trained to do this, for example, and that becomes the role of AEV, right? And that's why it starts with you and me. And therefore, we have to now adapt to this new type of transformed company that we're doing. And you're seeing this moving across the group where these transformations are happening. And that's what that great transformation is about. It's about telling you and reminding you, right, about transformation. Now, we should now probably have talked about this a little bit more and said, look, these are examples of transformation. So people say, uy, pala, that one is we are transforming, right? And then you can relate more to the transformation as we go down and the needs that we have for the unit. So what would AEV look like, right? AEV would look like definitely not in operations anymore. They would probably be good at managing board levels. Maybe, how do we do metrics better so we understand the metrics of all the SBUs better, when to be able to, when there's more value, when there's no value, create more partnerships because that creates better, that you can move your SBUs around, right? Like GIP, that gives you a whole new reputation of the world. Blackstone is the largest fund in the world, right? And they are, they own, I think today, just by being, because they own so much around the world, they own about 2% of the stock exchange today, right? And these are things that change us, both personally and professionally, because they bring in a discipline that we as portfolio managers still do not have and still have to evolve to. Right? And so we think that that's probably the future, right? So that would be an example of changes in the group.
Yes, thank you, sir, for the
AIC would become different, right? Because AIC would have a GIP way of thinking of saying, look, these are the things that we need to, these are the metrics that we need to monitor. So now people operate differently because these are the different metrics and why the metrics are there, right?
Thank you, sir. Yes, many great transformations more to come for AEV, AIC, all the SBUs. I hope if anyone has any questions, if none, Pigeonhole. With our Techglomerate transformation in full swing, do you see a need to recalibrate our ITIR values to better drive agility and align with our future-ready strategic goals?
Yes, definitely. As a matter of fact, this year, the HR team is very aware that I'm going to be driving the culture again, which I think I've said this before. I wanted to do this on day one in 2020. We got hit with the pandemic, got hit by so many other priorities. The culture took a step back. And as we transformed and did all of this, I've been able to, I think I should have spent more time with the culture and adapting and doing things like culture of better accountability and stuff like this. So we will spend much more time on culture, which affects your values, right? And don't expect a fancy thing of culture, right? It's about, I always like to go back to the Pilmico days where, I think we did a culture change, and I went there and haven't been with the team for a couple of years, right? Where we did a major culture program that we actually did in-house of a culture program that we thought of, since we thought of it, it was close to our hearts, we convinced ourselves, and we launched that program very well. It was called Partnerships in Leadership, thank you, right. And I think it was very successful because I went to their Christmas party today and I saw the same culture, right? So imagine Pilmico 2010 was basically a flour company with a limited operation, some swine operations in Tarlac, one feed mill, and another one now starting to build for the south, right? Which was already being built south. And all of a sudden we transformed, and it was kind of like you walk in and parang you're selling feed, we transformed into, nutrition, how it affected, we spread around Asia. So, and I think that we were, I would say, very successful because when I walked into that Christmas party, I felt that same fantastic culture that was still there, alive, people engaged. And so, 10 years or 15 years later, we saw this culture that was still there, right? And again, it was getting people engaged, right? People like take a picture of, the first time I entered the Iligan plant, I said, oh my God, what's going on to this plant? There's so many potholes, blah, 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 right? So everybody would now take pictures, send it to the Mancom, we would now process it. So fix the pothole, so people were engaged and they saw that changes were being done, picking up things in the, candy wrappers in the floor. This type of culture where it's not a, you don't have to be very smart, but it's very engaging, where people can actually adapt to it, right? And I can go on and on. So we will do that. We will do that now for AEV alone, right? And create this culture and the values. And I can't answer you about the values, but I think the values are timeless. They make sense. You might add one or two, but I think those values are pretty timeless. Defining what integrity means, for example, we've gone through this. Because integrity, if I write down to you today, if I ask you again to write down what integrity means to you, I think we will all write down pretty different things, right? So they've got to be we got to be focused on what it means to us, for example.
Yes, sir. Shout out to the Pilmico and Aboitiz Foods team members watching online. Hello to those who joined SMA at the Christmas party. And yes, that's just a sneak peek of the culture that we will be building for AEV and the rest of the Aboitiz group in the next phase of GT. Next question, if there is on site or online. Oh, there's a.
Oh.
Yes, Sid.
Hello, yeah, voluntold. Coming from your team, you often talk about accountability as core expectation. So I wanted to ask this at the culture level, which you just spoke. If accountability is part of our ITIR values, especially integrity and responsibility, how do we make sure it's shown in how we actually work, not just in team discussions? When commitments are missed and we apologize and move on, what puts accountability in place so it leads to real behavioral change, not just acknowledgement?
So I think Cedric is coming from a point where probably he's seeing the work that we do in the government and how there is such a lack of accountability. Accountability, we must define what we mean by accountability. Again, because we are wired to be less, to go and be less, what's the right word? Less hard on ourselves and be biased in our minds that it's not, that we're not accountable for that really, or that I don't even want to look at it. Accountability really means that if it falls on you, it falls on you. And saying I'm sorry for not doing, for something, it's okay, but it doesn't mean that you can do it again, right? Or that you are not responsible for that. So accountability of your team. If you're a leader, you're accountable to make sure that your team is briefed, has all the opportunities, right? That is, for example, a definition of accountability of a leader. When something goes wrong, if you're a CEO like me, if I go and I go to the board and I say, look, I want to buy Coca-Cola. Okay. If it doesn't work out in Coca-Cola, I am accountable. I have to make sure it works. I don't just, well, you know what? It's because the country became, no. It's not because the country slowed down and therefore my no, I am accountable. I am accountable for that. I'm accountable to the team. I'm accountable to the shareholders. I'm accountable, and I will do whatever it takes to make sure that we get this done. That's what, for example, an accountability really means, right? So that bias that we have of saying, trying to remove our accountability and saying it's because of all these other reasons. I mean, it's very easy to say, well, yeah, because of COVID, COVID has changed everything, right? Yeah, but you're still accountable, right? You're still accountable to your team, to your shareholders, to all of this. So I think that and when we go to your next, if you have committed to something, to get something done, then you have to do it that next time. If it's March 2026, I have committed to get blah, blah, blah. That commitment, that you're accountable to make sure that commitment is actually done, right? And not, oh, I forgot, I'm sorry, it slipped me, right? No, get it done, right? And that conversation with your team is the biggest, I think the biggest plus that you can give your team. Because when you bring down that accountability to your team, and you actually convince them that they're accountable, right? That is the biggest favor you can do to that person. Right? Because he now understands very clearly that I am accountable. If I say I'm going to do something, right, I'm going to do it, and I'm accountable for it, right? So I don't know. I mean, that's kind of accountability. The culture of accountability is something that we will talk about a lot. In this culture, because again, the world has changed so much, right? So multi generation. We never had 3 generations working in the same company, right? With kind of different ways of thinking. So yeah, that culture of accountability is something that we will, because we see it in the government a lot, where, parang, everything that they promise, everything that they say they're going to do, just...
So accountability, that's something else that we can take into 2026 with us.
Serious accountability, meaning we understand what it means.
Yes.
Yeah.
Take ownership of your work, of your decisions. For another question up here on the screen, how do you recognize which risks are worth taking early in your career versus which ones to avoid?
I'll tell you one. Don't go for promotion and don't go for salary. These are the 2 biggest mistakes that people usually do. Again, go for what's going to expose you, where you're going to learn, where you're going to... That, for me, is where your career should be focused on when you're young.
Never stop learning, sir. Yes.
It's much more important than that, If you're in a company that exposes you, that vis-a-vis, and then, obviously somebody says, well, okay, now you get an offer, 20% higher in the other company. So you take that and you say, I'm going to drop this and I'm going to go because I'm going to get a 20%. This, for me, is the biggest mistake that you're going to make. Unless that company obviously has the same, gives you that learning, exposure, etc., right? That, for me, is probably the biggest risk that you take. That short term, again, very short term, right? Vis-a-vis the long term, right?
Prioritize long-term decision-making, wiser choices. Yes.
Yeah. Learning. Right? The learning exposure is what's going to give you the highest value of all. Right?
Thank you, sir. Any other, before we get to Pigeonhole, if there's any questions, please again, feel free to raise your hands. If none, any other questions on Pigeonhole? Happy New Year, SMA. Speaking in terms of investments, what can you share about our business direction for 2026?
Okay, so I think that we all know what's going on. We all read the papers. We expect a general slowdown for 2026. 2027, mid-2027, you're kind of moving into election mode, right? So we don't know what's going to happen. So again, prudence is what I'm asking people to think about and advising on their personal lives too. Don't buy that pair of shoes that you don't need when the one you have today is still okay to run with. I think we should really seriously think about it, right? Because again, we are responsible for our families, like we're responsible for our jobs, to the investors. Again, I said to the team members. So let's not waste any time. Let's not waste any money. Let's not waste any other people's times. Let's focus on squeezing everything we can get out of the orange that we have today. Make things more effective. We can still. There's still so much, and that's all free, right? That goes directly. We're not looking at any major investment because we want to strengthen, make sure that we walk into 2020, to the next few years, that we're not sure, with a stronger balance sheet, right? Always just in case, because there might be opportunities also later on, right? And so we want our companies to be stronger. And one way of getting stronger is also finding the right partner, right? Where they can bring in not only capital, but they can bring in knowledge, right? To make sure that running airports, for example, you bring in a GIP, they come in and they run a lot of airports around the world, and they give us, they jumpstart to us the thinking, how to do it better, how to make the customer, how to deal with the government better, how to please the customer more, how to make it cheaper, more efficient. So that's how I see 2026, right? It's not complicated. Let's just be prudent, right? Let's not waste any time, effort, energy, right, on things that don't add value, or don't help us, right? You could probably say it's a bit short term, yes. You could also say it's very long term, right? Because you're getting ready for opportunities that might come later on, right? I mean, countries go through cycles. So, for example, the amount of money, our investment from abroad is almost nothing, right? I mean, our foreign direct investment is very small, so we can't rely on that. Our government spending, I think, will also be lower for a couple of reasons. One is, like, for example, the DPWH projects, obviously, we know what happened. So what would you do? So you think about it. Now, you're a contractor. What would you do now? Would you be more prudent? Would you be you don't know what's going to happen there. Are they going to tighten? Are they going to not pay? Right? So you put yourself in that situation. What would you do, right? So you kind of say, well, I'm going to be very careful if I'm going to bid for government projects. So then you've got that might make it harder for the government to be able to award some of these projects. And number three is the government has cut down the cost. They have cut and slashed the price of cement that you can charge, whatever it is, right? So, before the road was 20 million a kilometer, now they're saying, well, no, it's going to be only 10. So, not as attractive, et cetera, et cetera. So that also brings down the cost. So I think that government spending will actually take a while before it goes back. And it won't really happen in 2026. And therefore, our growth now is not as fast as a thing. So if we start growing at, let's say, 4% instead of 5 point something, well, that takes off power consumption, that takes off more or less everything, less food, less. So I think that's what 2026 is about. So let's see, let's be prudent, let's protect go back to protect the goose, right? I'm exaggerating, no? Don't get alarmed. But I'm saying, it's not the same. But the thinking is that, right? Just make sure that, and then you can, because when you see things are better, you can accelerate again, right? But if you've committed now and things don't get better, then. So I would relate it to what do you do on a personal basis when things like this happen. The corporate and the personal it's kind of the same thing.
Thank you, sir. So both in corporate life and in personal life, be prudent and keep things simple. I think we only have time for one more question. So if there's any online. Oh, yes.
You can hear me? No, sir. Before we end the session, the first season 7, there's many things being said earlier. There's many questions that were thrown and were answered. Just a little bit of a processing. When we get out of the SuperDuperCon, this particular SuperDuperCon, what is it that you want all of us to bear in mind? What is it that you want us to bring and take accountability?
Well, ideally, just like my New Year's message, I would discuss what we discussed today with your team, get my New Year's message, print it, right? As a leader, you print it, you discuss it with your team. What does it mean to us? What does it mean to the team? What does it mean to... That's what being a leader is about. You're taking from the leader on top, saying, look, this is the message I'm getting. What does it mean? How are we going to act? How are we going to plan? How are we going to... That would be what I would expect, right? And the discussion that we've had today, again, you sit down with your team and you go through what we discussed here. Those that watched, those that didn't watch, whatever it is, watch it again, I don't care, right? But it helps. So that helps spread the word, and it helps you also discuss with people. What do they think? What are we going to do next? So I guess, that would be my my expectation or my ask or my...
Thank you, SMA.
And then it creates that in the next SuperDuperCon, you engage people again, and they would have more questions later on. Well, I want to know more questions about what we discussed, the team, right? It creates that whole engagement. Vis-a-vis, you go back and nothing's ever discussed. You look at the difference, the part of things, right? You don't discuss the New Year's message, you don't discuss anything, and you continue with your life. Well, that's not the way it should be, no?
Yes, SMA. Let's take that action step, that next step, to print out the New Year's message, talk about it with your team, and be ready with your questions for the next SuperDuperCon. But for now, SMA, thank you so much for this wonderful opening to SuperDuperCon Season 7. Let's end this with our traditional groovy with SMA. So if everyone could please stand, come here to the front. Let's compress, everyone. Come here to the front. Ready? Smile.
1, 2, 1, 2. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, SMA. And thank you, everyone, for attending SuperDuperCon. If you have any feedback for us, please do scan the QR code to share that feedback. And we will see you next month for the next SuperDuperCon. Have a happy Monday.
Alam na intention niya.